They say heroes come in many forms, but no one expected one of them to have 4 legs, fur soaked in blood, and a heart bigger than any badge could carry. The boy had never spoken a word. Not after the fire that stole his parents. Not after the hospital visits, the therapies, or the countless foster homes. But when 9-year-old Mason clung to the side of a wounded police dog in front of a stunned crowd of officers and medics, something miraculous began to unfold. His first words in over a year didn't come softly. They roared through silence with the force of a lifetime of pain, hope, and healing. He whispered, "Don't let him die." Mason had lived through what most children never should. After losing both parents in a tragic house fire, he was rescued by first responders, but something in him had shut off. Doctors called it trauma-induced mutism. His eyes spoke volumes, but his lips held every word hostage. He was placed in temporary foster care, jumping from one family to another, each trying and failing to reach him. In this quiet world, Mason found comfort only in animals. He would often sit beside a neighbor's dog, letting the hours pass in silence. It was the only time his shoulders would relax, the only time his eyes wouldn't dart around in fear. When he was moved to a group home near downtown, the staff began arranging therapy visits with the local police department's K-9 unit, and that's how he met Shadow. Shadow wasn't your typical therapy dog. He was a working police K-9, sharp, disciplined, and fiercely loyal to his handler, Officer Blake Ramirez. But there was something about Mason that caught Shadow's attention immediately. Unlike the other kids, Mason didn't try to pet Shadow. He didn't talk or smile. He just sat beside him. And Shadow, trained to detect distress, leaned into the boy's silence. Every week they met. Every week Mason inched a little closer, until one day he placed his hand on Shadow's neck and left it there. Officer Ramirez noticed the shift immediately. Mason, who hadn't let anyone touch him in months, had made a connection. It was the start of something none of them could fully understand. It happened on a crisp fall afternoon. A robbery suspect had barricaded himself in an abandoned building, and Officer Ramirez, along with Shadow, was called to the scene. The standoff was tense. The suspect had a weapon. Shadow was deployed to neutralize the threat and protect officers trying to enter. Shadow did his job, but not without cost. He was shot before the suspect was subdued. As news spread, the department was devastated. Shadow was airlifted to an emergency veterinary hospital. The officers who had seen him in action knew he might not make it, but what no one expected was Mason's reaction. When his foster home told him what happened, the boy bolted. He ran 6 blocks barefoot, tears streaming down his face. The staff called the police in a panic, but Mason didn't stop until he reached the hospital steps. There, surrounded by medics and officers, he spotted Shadow, lying on a stretcher, breathing shallowly. And then it happened. Mason threw himself over Shadow's body, wrapping his arms tightly around the German Shepherd's heaving chest. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. But then, through lips that hadn't moved in over a year, he whispered, "Don't let him die." The officers froze. One dropped his clipboard. A paramedic gasped. Officer Ramirez went pale. The boy was speaking. The connection was undeniable. It wasn't therapy, or time, or medication that unlocked Mason's voice. It was love. It was loyalty. It was seeing his only friend, his safe place, lying broken on a gurney. Shadow's ear twitched at the sound. His tail thudded once against the stretcher. It was the beginning of the fight. Shadow was rushed into surgery. The bullet had missed vital organs but caused internal bleeding and nerve damage in his hind leg. The vet team worked tirelessly. Outside the glass doors, Mason didn't leave. Officers brought him food. His foster parents begged him to come home. He stayed. Shadow was his family now. For days, Mason sat beside the recovery cage. He spoke to Shadow, quiet, heartfelt things. He told him stories. He asked if the pain was bad. He promised he would never leave him again. The department was floored. News spread fast. Reporters came. Cameras flashed. But Mason only cared about Shadow, and slowly, painfully, the dog got better. 3 months later, Shadow walked again, limping, but proud. Officer Ramirez, now training a new K-9 partner, decided to retire Shadow officially. He had one condition, that Shadow live with the boy he saved, and who had saved him in return. Mason adopted him with the help of the department and his new foster family, who were now in the process of adopting Mason too. The trauma that once silenced him became a story of strength, healing, and unbreakable bonds. It wasn't just the rescue. It wasn't just the reunion. It was how Shadow lived every moment after, loyal, present, forgiving. He bore no grudge against the pain he suffered. He didn't dwell on fear or trauma. He just loved. Shadow became a certified therapy dog, visiting burn units, children's hospitals, and PTSD support groups. Wherever he went, Mason went too. Now a confident, smiling boy who would say, "This dog taught me how to be brave." People looked at Shadow and felt something they didn't expect. They didn't just admire him, they wanted to be like him, resilient, kind, protective, and endlessly forgiving. To everyone watching this, remember, true heroes don't always wear uniforms or speak with words. Sometimes they walk on 4 legs, with scars on their bodies and love in their eyes. If you've been moved by this story, please like, comment, and subscribe to Pawsitive Tales. Share this video with someone who needs hope, because stories, like Mason and Shadow's, remind us of the healing power of love, and why sometimes we all wish we could be a dog.